Bishops are long-range pieces. They're like snipers from afar that can have green light ready to attack if needed. A single bishop may have partial strength, but it is very effective in open positions. How much more when a pair of them patrols the entire chessboard? In this video, we'll talk about the bishop pair. Bishop pair has its own unique strengths, and grandmasters know that. They use it to win games, especially against lower rated opponents. On the other hand, many amateurs struggle to use and exploit them for their advantage. They don't even know that they already have the edge and therefore end up exchanging them for no compensation. So, why is the bishop pair so strong? The answer is simple. It can control more squares of both colors, especially in an open position. The next question now is, how do we handle the bishop pair effectively? Before we jump into that, let us first know different types of bishops. First, a good bishop. A bishop is considered good when its central pawns are not on its collar, therefore not obstructing or blocking its activity. In this position right here, White's light squared bishop on d3 is considered good because its pawns are sitting on dark squares. Therefore, it is not being blocked and it's having control over this important b1 to h7 diagonal. Next is a bad bishop. A bishop is considered bad when its central pawns are on its collar and thus blocking it. Let's go back into this position. While White's d3 bishop is considered good, Black's c6 bishop is bad since its pawns are on the same color as it already had, therefore blocking its path on some important diagonals. Next is an active bishop. An active bishop can either be good or bad. It's called active simply because it serves an active function. In this position, White's dark square bishop on f4 is having the same color as most of its pawns. But this bishop is totally not blocked and is doing a good job guarding this h2 to b8 diagonal. Therefore, this bishop is considered active, still being useful. Now that we got acquainted with different types of bishops, we now know which bishop to have. Or if we're unfortunate to own a bad bishop, we should make it a good one or at least an active one. Otherwise, we trade it for some other advantages. So how do we handle a bishop pair? In general, we should aim for an open kind of position to take advantage of the bishop pair. An open position gets its name because the center is not blocked by pawns, therefore the files and diagonals are open. So let's go over on the strategies, the principles on handling bishop pair. First, bishop pair needs open position. In order for the bishop pair to be at their maximum strength, they need open lines. In other words, they need to be good bishops. In this position right here, White owns the bishop pair versus Black's knight and bishop. But these bishops right here are somehow limited due to some blockage of pawns. Now, White needs to do something to capitalize on the advantage that he has. The move e5 is played. This makes the bishop pair happy. First, the f3 bishop now becomes active and unblocked, and now it's having this discovered attack on b7 pawn. Second, if the exchange happens, for example, d takes e5, f takes e5, f takes e5, bishop takes e5, the bishop from g3 to e5 also becomes alive. Now both of these bishops have this dominating position right here and are attacking multiple targets and controlling many squares around the board. If you happen to possess a bishop pair and the other bishop is limited, all you have to do is make it active by either maneuvering it or pushing some pawns to open it up, just like in the previous position. In this position, black has the bishop pair right here. The bishop on c5 is just doing okay. It is an active bishop, putting some pressure on this e3 pawn and looking forward to have an x-ray towards the king. At some point, the idea of maybe f5 to f4 might become feasible. But the other bishop on b7 is blocked, because earlier in the game, white played bishop to a4 attacking this rook on e8, and white, or black rather, was forced to push his pawn to c6. That is why there is a c6 pawn in there. Now, what is black going to do to make this b7 bishop active? Now white needs to find a way to make it useful, and that is bishop to a6. The idea is simple, maneuvering it to a better diagonal and also attacking the rook on f1. There are many options white can do here. If rook f to e1 is played, of course, bishop to d3 is very strong, improving the bishop's position even further. If an exchange of rooks happens, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and rook d1, bishop d3 is the same story. Black's bishop pair still dominates. If after bishop a6, if c4 is been replied here by white. Now, the c4 play by white would actually block his own b3 bishop. Therefore, it's going to be bad for him for this time. While black can always maneuver his bishop to c8, okay, can always play that bishop to c8 and go to bishop e6 or bishop f5. Maybe after playing h4 first to drive the knight away. And both of black's bishop are still better versus white's minor pieces. Number 2. Bishop pair dominates endgame. In the endgame where most of the pieces are already gone, normally the board has been cleared and the position is open. Even when pawns are on both sides of the board, a bishop pair can still have access and control. Here, black owns a passer right here, an A passer, a pass pawn that seems to be deadly. But the pawn is not going anywhere. White's bishop on c5 is controlling its path while also guarding the squares where an enemy knight can jump into. The other bishop on f3 is also a good bishop. White will play bishop to d5 here to increase the squares that it can control and also providing or preventing some king move here going to the center from the enemy. Just imagine how the pair of bishops dominate this position. Soon white will play f4 here and maybe g5 to advance his king even more with space, and white will win easily in this game. A bishop pair is effective when passed pawns in the endgame. Now with these passed pawns, they also work well when marched together with its king to gain space. In this position, observe how white will manage to advance his pass pawn and progress his king with the use of his bishop pair. The game continues a5, bishop to d8, king to e3, knight to c5. Now, of course, white will not just trade his bishop for this knight because this bishop pair is very useful and dominating, so he plays bishop to c4. Still, guarding these squares right here so that the knight can't just attack the a5 pawn from behind. Knight b7, attacking the pawn here up front. a6, a progression, advancing the pawn. Bishop to b6 check. King needs to go to f3, so that if in other squares there will be check on knight c5, right? Knight c5, Bishop to d4, pinning the knight so that this bishop on b6 uh, will be stuck in there. Bishop to a7, king to e3, king f8, h4, locking the queen side. Bishop to b6. Notice how this position creates some zugzwang's position for black. King to e2. Of course, knight cannot just capture this e4 because this bishop is still going to be hanging. King to e7. King d1. White plans to transfer his king to the other side of the board to assist this pass pawn. Bishop to a7. King to c2. f5. And black breaks through. Alright, e5. Pawn takes pawn. And f takes pawn. Is this pass pawn going to be dangerous? Okay, let's observe. f4, king d1, and this king has the freedom to go whichever he wants to. f3, king c2 again, bishop to b6, king c3, knight a4 check, king d3, f2, king to e4. Notice how the bishops dominate and control the squares even with this pass pawn here, but this pass pawn is stretched here, overstretched, and is going to be weak. Bishop takes, king takes bishop, knight b6, and bishop f1. King to e6, bishop h3. Now, white decided to trade in one of his bishops because he sees an opportunity, a better advantage here, a winning position after those bishops had been traded. King c5 and 98. Bishop or king to c6, king to d8, a7, knight to c7, king d7. It's going to be a win for white now. Queen, bishop takes queen, king d7. Now this is an important move here to check first before promoting to queen, right? Bishop h3, check, king d8, e6, an important move also to clamp black's king into this center of the board, and black resigns because after this queen here move by white, black is really hopeless. And in this situation, actually, black is already zugzwang and can't have any good move uh, aside from g5. So of course, white will just take that, and another pass pawn is born. Next, bishop pair versus other pieces. Now, a pair of bishops can almost work versus just any other pieces, depending on the situation. I want to emphasize this important principle here, or important lesson here, because this can happen in the real game. In a closed position, however, especially against a pair of knights, it will be challenging. Now notice how this position is closed, wherein these bishops are blocked and limited. These bishops don't have any open diagonals, and there's no attacking points, no squares to control. So, this pair of bishops seems to be useless, right? Of having these bishops is just pointless. So in this kind of situation, knights appear to have an edge. But how does a pair of bishop handle this? Knights do have so many outposts here. You can jump to these outposts here and just do some maneuvering, and there are many maneuvering here for a knight. And knight really dominates close positions. And one of the things that knight can do is actually attack some weak pawns here. So bishops need to guard those weaknesses and trade in one of them if needed to equalize. Now take note, if the position is open, But if the position is open, a pair of bishops can totally dominate a pair of knights. In this position, this is a different story. Bishops control a lot of squares, especially those that are of the knights. They can even attack some pawns by way of bishop to f2. And notice how the squares here, key squares that can be used by knight to progress, have been guarded by black. So this time, an open position, bishop pair dominates over the knights. Even a rook can be matched by a pair of bishop in an open chessboard. Here, white is even down a pawn. But his superior bishops are very strong that a rook can't find a loophole into white's position. The game continues. White played h4. Now, h4 has been played here to try to exchange some pawns. If black captures it with g takes h4, that is going to be a temporary pawn, a weak pawn right there, because white can just, take it back later in the game with king to g2 and h3. And that is white has played. Rook to c6, and black puts his rook in an open file. Notice how this open file seems to be useless because that is going to be a no entry. There are two guards here guarding this diagonal, and rook cannot just go and dominate. King to h3, white is planning to take back the pawn. King f6, king takes h4, e5. An important move by black to progress. D takes e4, king takes pawn, bishop to f5. Now d4. This pass pawn of black looks to be dangerous here. King to h5, targeting this pawn. g5. Imagine how this black player here tries hard to find a way on how to get into white's position, because there, if we are to look at this position, there is no way that he can just attack the king and dominate these some weak pawns in here. So what he decided to do was that he just sacrificed a pawn. Bishop to b4, bishop takes b4, and what's the plan? A rook c1, and white will just capture that h6 pawn, and this is going to be win for white at the end. So the pawn will progress, and the bishop pair, one of these bishops is going to be sacrificed to take down this pass pawn. But white will have his own pass pawn, very faster, a lot faster than black's pass pawn. These rooks can't do anything. So imagine a pair of bishops can even dominate the rooks. So in all of these strategies, one key thing to do when handling bishop pair, there's one common strategy in all of this, and that is to open up the position. But if you are unfortunate to own a bishop pair in a closed position, guard some key outposts and exchange one of your bishops if an advantage is seen. I hope you learned a lot something from this video. If you do, please hit like and subscribe buttons for more updates and the upcoming new chess videos.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.